Hi guys, it's Dr. Pam and I'm here with your burning question this week. To grain or not to grain? That is the question. And talking about grains is not an unfamiliar subject in this series. We talk about it all the time. We've talked about grain-free diets versus grained diets in the development of DCM and the real truth behind that. We've talked about the anatomical, physiological, and biochemical insufficiencies that dogs and cats have in digesting grains and other starchy carbohydrates. We've talked about the digestive transit versus true digestion. Moving through the gut is not the same thing as being digested and assimilated by the gut, right? So we've talked also about how inflammatory producing grains can be. And the big thing is if we have dogs that have long chronic diseases, grains may not be a really good additive to that particular disease. So you have to know about things like that. So what else could I possibly add? Well, guess what? There's a new study out that's been released that actually has measured mycotoxin concentration in grain-free diets and grain-in diets. And guess what they found? They measured 60 different types of pet food, half grain-free and half grain-in. And of those, half were wet and half were dry. And what they found was that the grain-free diets had no mycotoxin in them whatsoever. The grain-in dry food had mycotoxin, lots and lots of mycotoxin. And so you can look at me and say, mycotoxin, what's that? Well, a mycotoxin is a toxin that's produced by a mold or fungi. And in the case of pet food, or even in the human market, you get the growth of fungi and mold on foodstuffs that is harvested and then is actually stored. And if it's inappropriately stored and it's too hot or too moist, molds form, right? And if molds form, then mycotoxins are produced. Now, mycotoxins are not new. I mean, they've been around for a long, long, long time. What is interesting is we started studying them in the 1960s. I think the biggest push of information on mycotoxin was from 60 to 75. They called it the mycotoxin gold rush because a lot of information, there was just a push, push, push to learn more and more information. And if you want to know more information, there's a great website, ncbi.com. It's a great website that has millions of articles, and you can look up a lot of articles to your heart content. So feel free to cross-reference anything that I'm telling you. Okay, so back to mycotoxins. So the big thing is that there are about 300 to 400 types of mycotoxins. Now, in the human market, there is an allowable amount of mycotoxins that can be in the human food chain, which is kind of scary in and of itself because it's a toxin, but let's go with it. And then in the pet food industry, they don't have a real standard. It hasn't been tested. They extrapolate. And what they don't take into account is that we have more exposure in the pet food than we do in the human food. So why is that? So let's talk. There are two real big types of mycotoxin intoxication. One is an acute toxicity. That's like the diamond pet food scandal several years back. And in that one, they had acute toxicity, ingestion of aflatoxin B. And they had dogs that died, lots of liver disease and death, lots of kidney disease and death, lots of neurologic disease and death, you see my point, it's blah, 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 and death, okay? So acute toxicities are pretty bad and they're there. But it's the insidious ones that create a big problem for us because we don't recognize it. And mycotoxins taken over time in small amount create chronic disease. There was a paper done in 2007 that stipulated this, and in that paper they said, we think this is the #1 problem in pet food. That was 2007. That was 12 years ago. Has anybody done anything about it? Hey, as a matter of fact, all the study of mycotoxin was 50 plus years ago. Has anything changed? Think about that. So anyway, there's also mycotoxins. Obviously, there's mycotoxins in food stuff. You've got your grains, you've got your cereals, you've got your sorghum, you've got soybean, you've got peanuts, and you've got coffee beans. Think about that the next time you're feeding your dog kibble in the morning, drinking your coffee. Little guilt for everybody. Just spread it around. Anyway, but you also have mycotoxins that exist in drugs and in antibiotics. They use them in growth promoting hormones. And And there's an interesting paper that talks about the use of mycotoxins in chemical warfare. Oh my God! Does that not scare you? So mycotoxins are a big deal, and every day we're giving our pet through dry food mycotoxins, especially if there's grain there. You're giving them mycotoxins every single day, every single meal. And then you look at me and you say, but Dr. Pam, if I feed them a grain-free diet, we're going to have DCM. Go back and watch the video. That's not the problem. The problem is that we're feeding unfoods, foods that don't exist. They are actually processed to a degree that there's no nutritional value. They have to add back synthetic nutrients to even bring up the level of nutrition in that particular bag. And then the body doesn't use it the same way. The body is very picky about the type of nutrients. It prefers whole foods, and it will create reactions if you give synthetic foods, right? So it's the food industry that's the problem. And we, as consumers, can make a difference by asking for more real food diets, for really standing up for our pets. Now, real food diets have real food. There's raw food, there's cooked food, there's air dried, there's freeze dried, there's dehydrated, and there's different variations of those, and some are better than the others, but they're real foods. And most of them don't have grains and shouldn't have grains. And so it's a beautiful thing. So I invite you to look a little bit more. I think it's a beautiful opportunity to increase your level of your pet's health. And then also you can think about what you're doing when you're drinking your coffee and maybe find a better source of coffee. I'm very picky about my coffee, by the way, but I still drink it because it's awesome. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, or scroll down, leave it there. If it's a good general question, I'll answer it, or we'll have another burning question. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day.